The year was 2247, and humanity had never been happier. After centuries of war, disease, and suffering, the people of Earth had finally found peace. They had built great cities that touched the clouds. They had cured the worst diseases, and 10 years ago, they had done the impossible. They had learned to travel faster than light. Now human ships sailed between the stars. Colonies grew on distant worlds with names like New Helsinki, Prosperity, and Haven. Children were born who had never seen Earth's blue sky, yet they still called themselves human. The United Terran Republic governed all of humanity with wisdom and hope. People believed that the future would be bright. They were wrong. Secretary General Marcus Okonkwo stood in his office in Geneva, looking at the night sky through the window. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen much suffering. He had worked his whole life to build peace. Tonight, he felt proud of what humanity had become. His assistant rushed into the room. Her face was white with fear. "Sir," she said, her voice shaking. "Something has appeared near the moon. Many ships. Hundreds of them." Okonkwo felt his heart go cold. "What kind of ships?" "Not human, sir. Not human at all." Within the hour, the world changed forever. The ships were enormous. They looked like they were made of crystal and light, each one larger than any vessel humanity had ever built. They moved with perfect grace, surrounding Earth's orbital stations like wolves circling sheep. There were over 300 of them, and more kept arriving. Fleet Admiral Yuki Tanaka watched from the bridge of her flagship, the Unconquered. She was a small woman, with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She had commanded humanity's fleet for 15 years and had never known fear. She knew it now. "Admiral," her officer said quietly, "they are hailing us. All frequencies. Every screen on Earth." "Let them speak," Tanaka said. "Let us hear what they want." The face that appeared on the screens was not human. It belonged to a creature with pale blue skin and 4 eyes that glowed like yellow stars. Its mouth was too wide, filled with teeth like needles. When it spoke, its voice was cold and ancient. "I am Ambassador Thexvolan of the Dominion. I speak for the Galactic Council, rulers of the Orion Arm for 80,000 years. We have watched your kind crawl out of your cradle and touch the stars. Now, you will learn your place." People across Earth stopped what they were doing. They watched in their homes, in the streets, in the colonies far away. Every human heard the aliens' next words. "All new species must pay tribute to the Council. You will give us 30% of your resources. You will limit your fleet to 20 ships. You will provide genetic samples of your kind for our archives. You will accept observers on your worlds. This is not a request. This is the law of the galaxy." Thexvolan's 4 eyes seemed to look at every human at once. 17 species have refused us before. Some are now slaves. Some are extinct. None remain free. You have 30 of your solar days to submit. If you do not, you will face correction. This is your only warning. The screens went dark. For a long moment, the world was silent. Then, the chaos began. Okonkwo called an emergency meeting of Earth's leaders. They gathered in a great hall, their faces showing fear, anger, and confusion. Military officers presented their findings, and the news was grim. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours," Admiral Tanaka reported. "Their shields can stop anything we have. Their weapons can destroy our ships from distances we cannot even reach. If they attack with their full force, we will lose. Then we must negotiate," one leader said. 30% of our resources is better than extinction. "And the genetic samples?" another asked. "What do they want those for?" "It does not matter what they want them for," a third voice shouted. "We cannot fight gods. We must submit and survive." The room erupted in argument. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to fight and die with honor. Some suggested running, hiding, hoping the council would forget them. Okonkwo listened to all of them. Then he raised his hand, and the room fell silent. "I have heard your words," he said slowly. "But this decision is too important for us alone. This choice belongs to every human being. We will ask them." Within 12 hours, every human over the age of 16 had voted. The question was simple: submit or resist. The results came back from Earth, from the Moon, from Mars, from the distant colonies, and when Okonkwo read them, tears formed in his eyes. 94% of humanity had voted to resist. He stood before the cameras and spoke to the world. "The people have spoken. We have faced ice ages. We have faced plagues. We have faced world wars. We have faced every horror that nature and our own foolishness could create. And we are still here. We did not survive so long by bending our knees to tyrants. We will not start now. He paused, and his voice grew strong. To the Galactic Council, I say this. We reject your tribute. We reject your laws. We reject your threats. You may have ruled this galaxy for 80,000 years, but you have never met a species like humanity. We will not submit. We will not surrender. We will not yield. Across the stars, other species heard this message. Species that had served the Council for thousands of years. Species that had forgotten what freedom meant. They heard a small, young species stand up to the ancient masters, and something stirred in their hearts. Something that had been dead for a very long time. Hope. Ambassador Tex Volan received humanity's answer aboard his ship. His 4 eyes narrowed, and his needle teeth showed in what might have been a smile. Brave, he said to his officers. Foolish but brave. Contact Warlord Keth Sorak. Tell him the humans have chosen correction. Tell him to bring the fleet. His officers looked uncertain. The full correction fleet, Ambassador? For such a primitive species? They rejected us publicly, Tex Volan said. Other subject species heard their message. We must make an example of them. A terrible example. When we are done, no one will remember that the humans ever existed. Far away, on a colony called New Helsinki, Governor Jinsu Park received a secret message from Earth. She read it 3 times to make sure she understood. Then she called her most trusted engineers to a hidden meeting. We are going to build ships, she told them. Many ships, and we are going to hide them where the Council will never find them. If Earth falls, if Mars falls, if everything falls, these ships will survive, and one day, they will strike back. One engineer raised his hand. Governor, how long do we have? 30 days, she said. Maybe less. So we work fast. We work in secret, and we pray that it will be enough. The countdown had begun. In 30 days, the most powerful military force in the galaxy would arrive to destroy humanity. The people of Earth knew they would probably die. They prepared for war anyway, because some things were more important than survival, because some prices were too high to pay, because when the universe tells you to kneel, sometimes the only right answer is to stand. Humanity would not yield. Whatever came next, they would face it standing tall. The 30 days of waiting were the longest in human history. Every hour felt like a year. Every day brought humanity closer to a battle they could not win. But they did not spend those days in fear. They spent them preparing. Across Earth, factories that once made cars, now made weapons. Shipyards worked through the night, building and repairing every vessel they could. Scientists who had studied stars and planets now studied the alien ships, looking for any weakness. Old soldiers came out of retirement. Young people lined up to volunteer. Humanity had decided to fight, and now humanity worked together like never before. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood at the heart of it all. She had only 89 warships against hundreds of alien vessels. She knew the math. She knew they would lose in a straight fight, so she decided they would not fight straight. We cannot match their strength, she told her captains in a secret meeting. So we will not try. We will use tricks. We will use traps. We will make them pay for every inch of space with blood. She divided her fleet into small groups called wolf packs. Each group had 5 ships that would work together, striking fast and running faster. They practiced hiding behind moons and asteroids. They learned to appear from nowhere, attack, and vanish before the enemy could respond. The Council has ruled for 80,000 years, Tanaka said. They have forgotten what it means to fight someone who has nothing to lose. We will remind them. On Earth, Dr. Elena Vasquez worked in a secret laboratory deep underground. She was a physicist, a woman who studied how the universe worked. Now she studied how to break it. Our FTL drives are different from theirs, she explained to Secretary General Okonkwo. The Council uses stable wormholes, safe and reliable. Our drives are more dangerous. They bend space itself. We always thought that was a weakness. She smiled, and there was something fierce in her eyes. But what if it is a strength? What if we could jump a ship inside their shields? Just for a moment. Just long enough to deliver a bomb directly into their hull. Okonkwo stared at her. Is that possible? Theoretically, yes. Practically, The pilot would probably die. The ship would almost certainly be destroyed. But it would take the enemy with it. Would anyone volunteer for such a mission? Dr. Vasquez nodded slowly. I have already asked. The line of volunteers goes around the building. Far from Earth, on the frozen world of New Helsinki, Governor Jinsu Park pushed her people harder than they had ever been pushed. The hidden shipyard in the asteroid belt worked day and night. Workers slept in 4-hour shifts. Some collapsed from exhaustion and were carried to beds, only to return to work hours later. We need 200 ships, Park told her engineers. I do not care if it is impossible. Make it possible. The engineers did not argue. They simply worked. They built new ships from scratch. They modified old mining vessels into warships. They created weapons from industrial equipment. It was ugly, desperate work, but they did it. These ships will not be pretty, the chief engineer warned Park. They will not last long in battle. They do not need to be pretty, Park replied. They need to fight. Even if they only fight once, that will be enough. Meanwhile, the galaxy watched and waited. The Council's subject species saw humanity's defiance, and they whispered among themselves. For thousands of years, they had believed resistance was impossible. Now, a young, primitive species was proving them wrong. On a distant world, a creature called Vethnar gathered others of his kind in secret. They were the Veleth, a species that had served the Council for 3,000 years. They had long ago given up hope of freedom. The humans will die, one Veleth said. The Council always wins. Perhaps, Vethnar replied. But they are fighting. They are actually fighting. When was the last time anyone fought? No one could remember. If they can fight, Vethnar said slowly, perhaps we can too. Perhaps not today. Perhaps not tomorrow. But someday. If the humans can plant a seed of rebellion, maybe that seed will grow. The Council was not blind to this danger. Ambassador Thex Volan received reports of unrest among the subject species, small things, whispered conversations, fewer volunteers for work details, looks of something that might have been defiance. It worried him. The humans must be destroyed quickly, he told Warlord Keth Sorak. And the destruction must be complete. Every other species must see what happens to those who resist. Keth Sorak was a massive creature covered in hard plates like armor. He had commanded the correction fleet for 500 years. He had never lost a battle. He looked at the reports about humanity and laughed. These primitives barely have spaceflight, he said. They have less than 100 ships. I have 500. This will not be a battle. It will be an execution. Do not underestimate them, Thex Volan warned. They are strange. They do not think like other species. All species think alike when they are dying, Keth Sorak replied. I will crush them so completely that their name will become a warning. In 1,000 years, parents will tell their children, remember the humans, remember what happens to those who defy the Council. On the 30th day, the deadline expired. Humanity's answer had not changed. Keth Sorak's fleet emerged from their wormholes above Mars. 500 crystalline warships, each one a masterpiece of ancient technology, spread across the sky like a net of death. They moved toward Earth with terrible grace. Admiral Tanaka watched them come. Her fleet was gathered near Earth, 89 ships against 500. Her officers were silent, knowing they would probably die today. Keth Sorak broadcast a message to the human fleet. This is your final chance. Surrender now, and some of you will be allowed to live as servants. Resist, and every human will die. Choose wisely. Tanaka looked at her crew. She saw fear in their eyes, but she also saw determination. She saw people who had chosen to fight for something greater than themselves. She activated her own broadcast. Warlord Keth Sorak. I am Admiral Yuki Tanaka, of the United Terran Republic. Humanity has given you our answer. We will not surrender. We will not serve. If you want our world, you will have to take it from our cold, dead hands. She paused, and her voice grew hard as iron. Come take it. Keth Sorak's eyes widened slightly. Then he gave the order. Kill them all. The Battle of Sol had begun. Across the solar system, weapons powered up. Engines roared to life. Humanity's small fleet moved to meet the enemy, knowing they faced almost certain death. But they did not run. They did not hide. They flew straight toward the enemy with fire in their hearts and defiance in their souls. Back on Earth, Billions of people watched the sky and waited. Mothers held their children. Lovers held each other. Old people prayed to gods they had not believed in for years. In the hidden shipyard of New Helsinki, Governor Park watched the battle begin on her screens. She turned to her workers. "Faster," she said quietly. "We must work faster. We are their only hope." The first shots were fired. The first ships died. And humanity learned what it truly meant to fight against the darkness of the universe. The defiance had become war. And war had no mercy. The first hour of battle was a nightmare. Human weapons struck the council shields and did nothing. It was like throwing stones at a mountain. The shields simply absorbed everything and glowed brighter. But the council weapons did not miss. 12 human ships died in the first 10 minutes. They exploded into clouds of fire and metal, carrying hundreds of souls into the darkness. Keth Sorak watched with satisfaction. This was exactly what he expected. The primitives were learning their place. "Continue the advance," he ordered. "Destroy them all." Admiral Tanaka watched her ships die, and her heart broke with each one. But she did not panic. She had known this would happen. The first wave was supposed to die. They were buying time. "All wolf packs, scatter," she commanded. "Execute Plan Broken Arrow." The surviving human ships suddenly split apart, running in different directions. The council fleet, moving as one unit, had to divide to chase them. And that was when Tanaka sprung her first trap. Hidden among the asteroids near Mars were 50 civilian freighters. They were old ships, normally used for carrying ore and supplies. Today they carried something else. Each one held an antimatter bomb the size of a house. The freighters powered up their engines and flew directly at the council fleet. They made no attempt to dodge or weave. They simply flew as fast as they could toward the enemy. Keth Sorak saw them coming. "Destroy those ships," he ordered casually. His weapons teams opened fire. 40 freighters exploded before they reached the fleet. But 10 got through. They flew into the middle of the council formation and detonated. 40 council warships vanished in an instant. The explosions were so bright that people on Earth could see them in the daytime sky. Keth Sorak's flagship shook from the shockwave. The warlord stared at his screens in disbelief. They used civilian ships as weapons?" "Yes, warlord," his officer replied, equally shocked. "They killed their own people to damage us." Keth Sorak had fought 100 species across 10,000 years. None of them had ever done this. Civilian ships were for carrying cargo and running away. No species sacrificed their own civilians as weapons. But humans were not like other species. Admiral Tanaka did not celebrate. She had just sent brave volunteers to their deaths. But their sacrifice had worked. The council fleet was damaged and confused. Now came the second phase. "All Icarus pilots," she broadcast. "You are cleared to engage." Across the battlefield, 20 small ships powered up special drives. These were the ships Dr. Vasquez had designed. Each pilot knew they would probably die. Each one had volunteered anyway. Lieutenant Carlos Mendez was one of them. He was 26 years old. He had a wife and a daughter on Earth. He knew he would never see them again. "I love you," he whispered to a photo in his pocket. Then he flew his ship straight at a council dreadnought. At the last second, his FTL drive activated. Space itself bent and twisted. His ship vanished from normal space and reappeared inside the dreadnought's hull. For 1 millisecond, his ship and the enemy ship occupied the same space. Physics did not allow this. The explosion was spectacular. The dreadnought tore itself apart from the inside. Mendez died instantly, but he took 2,000 council soldiers with him. Across the battlefield, 19 other pilots did the same thing. 19 more council ships died. Keth Sorak watched in horror. His shields were useless against weapons that appeared inside them. His superior technology meant nothing against enemies who were willing to die. "What are these creatures?" he whispered. The battle raged for 6 days. It spread across the entire solar system. The council fleet pushed toward Earth, and humanity made them pay for every kilometer. When human ships ran out of missiles, they rammed the enemy. When they ran out of ships, they used mining vessels and cargo haulers. Earth's orbital stations fell on the 3rd day. Luna Base was destroyed on the 4th. Millions of people died. But for every human who fell, they took 3 council soldiers with them. On the 6th day, Admiral Tanaka's flagship, the Unconquered, was surrounded by enemy ships. Her weapons were empty. Her engines were damaged. She had one option left. "Set collision course for the enemy command ship," she ordered. Her crew did not hesitate. They had followed her for years. They would follow her into death. The Unconquered accelerated toward Keth Sorak's flagship. Council weapons tore into her, ripping off armor and destroying systems. But she kept coming. Tanaka stood on her bridge as fire exploded around her. "Tell humanity to keep fighting," she said into her communicator. "Tell them we will not yield. Tell them." The Unconquered struck Keth Sorak's flagship at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the darkness of space. Admiral Yuki Tanaka died as she had lived. Fighting, Keth Sorak survived. He had escaped to another ship moments before impact, but he was shaken. He had lost over 150 ships. He had lost his flagship. He had lost more soldiers than in his last 20 campaigns combined, and the humans were still fighting. Only 23 human warships remained. They retreated to the outer solar system, damaged and exhausted but unbroken. Keth Sorak could have chased them. He could have finished them. Instead, he did something he had never done before. He called for reinforcements. "Send me more ships," he broadcast to the council. "These creatures are not like the others. They fight like demons. They use tactics we have never seen. I need more ships to finish them." The council was shocked. The great Keth Sorak, who had never lost, was asking for help against primitives with less than 100 ships, but they sent the reinforcements. Another 200 warships began the journey to Seoul. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt of New Helsinki, Governor Jin-Soo Park received a message from the survivors of the human fleet. It told her about the battle. It told her about Admiral Tanaka's death. It told her about the reinforcements coming. And then it asked her one question. Were the ships ready? Park looked at her shipyard. 200 new warships floated in the darkness, hidden among the asteroids. They were ugly ships, built in desperate haste. But they worked, and they carried weapons designed using everything humanity had learned from the battle. She sent her reply. "The ships are ready. Admiral Tanaka bought us enough time." Her sacrifice was not wasted. The survivors of the human fleet gathered around New Helsinki. They looked at the new ships, built in secret while they had been dying. They thought about all the friends they had lost. Captain Dmitry Volkov took command. He was a hard man with cold eyes, but those eyes were wet with tears when he spoke to his crews. "Admiral Tanaka is dead. Luna base is gone. Earth stations are destroyed. We have lost more than we can count, but we are still here. And now we have ships." He pointed at the new fleet. "These ships are our answer. These ships are our revenge. The council thinks we are beaten. They think we will run and hide. They are wrong. We are going to take the fight to them. We are going to make them regret the day they found humanity." The crews cheered. They were tired and wounded and afraid, but they were also angry. And angry humans were dangerous humans. The Battle of Seoul was over. Humanity had lost their home defenses, but they had survived. More than that, they had proven something to the galaxy. They could be hurt, but they could not be easily broken. The war was just beginning. And this time, humanity would not be playing defense. Captain Dmitry Volkov was not like Admiral Tanaka. Tanaka had been a defender, a shield for her people. Volkov was a sword. He believed that the best defense was a violent and terrifying offense. "The council came to our home," he told his captains in his first briefing. "They killed our people. They destroyed our stations. Now we go to their homes. We kill their people. We destroy their stations. We make them feel what we felt." Some officers were uncertain. "Sir, they have thousands of ships. We have 200. How can we attack them?" Volkov smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. "We do not attack their fleets. We attack their supply lines, their fuel depots, their communication stations. We appear from nowhere, strike fast, and vanish before they can respond. We are wolves, and we will hunt." The human fleet divided into wolf packs of 5 ships each. They scattered across council space, using hidden routes and captured maps. They struck without warning and disappeared without trace. The first attack came at a council fuel depot near the edge of their territory. 1,000 workers were refueling supply ships when 5 human vessels appeared from FTL. The human ships destroyed every fuel tank, every supply ship, and the depot itself. Then they vanished before the council response fleet could arrive. Keth Sorak heard about the attack and was furious. "Find them," he screamed at his officers. "Find them and destroy them." But finding the humans was not easy. They never attacked the same place twice. They never followed predictable patterns. They seemed to appear everywhere at once. The second attack came at a communication relay, the third at a shipyard, the fourth at a mining colony. Each time, the humans struck and vanished like ghosts. Each time, the council arrived too late, and each time, the subject species watched. They saw the mighty council bleeding from 1,000 small wounds. They saw that the humans were still fighting, still surviving, still defying the ancient masters. Vethnar of the Velith watched from his world and made a decision. He gathered trusted members of his species and sent a secret message to the human fleet. We are the Velith. We have served the council for 3,000 years. We are not free, but we want to be. We can give you information, patrol schedules, supply routes, weaknesses. In exchange, we ask only one thing. When you win, remember us. When you win, not if, when. Captain Volkov received the message and knew it changed everything. He now had eyes and ears inside the council itself. He shared the intelligence with his wolf packs, and their attacks became even more deadly. The council could not understand how the humans always knew where to strike. Their secure routes were ambushed. Their hidden depots were destroyed. It was as if the humans could read their minds. Keth Sorak was obsessed with destroying the human fleet. He abandoned his duties elsewhere and chased them personally with his remaining ships. He was determined to avenge his humiliation at the Battle of Sol. They made me call for reinforcements, he growled to his officers. Me, the greatest warlord in council history. I will find them, and I will burn them until not even ashes remain. His obsession was exactly what Volkov wanted. The Nexus Gate was one of the most important structures in council space. It was a massive ring that created stable wormholes, allowing ships to travel vast distances instantly. Without the Nexus Gate, council ships would need weeks to reach the outer territories. It was heavily defended, surrounded by 50 warships at all times. Volkov looked at the intelligence reports from the Velith and smiled. The council thinks the Nexus Gate is untouchable, he said. They are wrong. We are going to destroy it, and we are going to trap Keth Sorak's fleet in the process. The plan was complex and dangerous. First, human wolf packs attacked 3 separate targets at the same time, forcing the council to divide their forces. Then they sent false signals, making it seem like the main human fleet was hiding in a distant nebula. Keth Sorak took the bait. He gathered 300 ships and raced toward the nebula, traveling through the Nexus Gate. He would finally destroy the humans who had caused him so much shame, but the nebula was empty. And while Keth Sorak was inside the wormhole, Captain Volkov attacked the Nexus Gate itself. The battle was short and brutal. The 50 defending ships fought hard, but they were outnumbered 4-1. Human weapons, improved with lessons from the Battle of Sol, tore through council shields. Within an hour, the defenders were destroyed. Volkov positioned his fleet around the Nexus Gate and waited. He knew what was coming. The wormhole began to shimmer. Keth Sorak's fleet was returning, having found nothing in the nebula. The first ships began to emerge from the gate. Now, Volkov ordered, human ships fired everything they had at the Nexus Gate's control systems. The ancient structure groaned and twisted. The stable wormhole became unstable. Space itself began to tear. Half of Keth Sorak's fleet was inside the wormhole when it collapsed. 300 ships were suddenly caught between 2 points in space. The dimensional shear was instant and absolute. 150 ships simply ceased to exist, torn apart by forces no technology could survive. Keth Sorak's flagship was among the survivors, barely escaping before the collapse. He watched his fleet die and screamed in rage, but there was nothing he could do. The Nexus Gate was destroyed, his fleet was cut in half, and the humans were already gone, vanished into FTL before he could respond. The news of the Battle of Nexus Gate spread across the galaxy like fire. 300 council ships destroyed by a species that had barely achieved spaceflight 50 years ago. The great warlord Keth Sorak defeated again, this time losing half his command. Subject species that had been whispering now began to speak aloud. The Velith sent more intelligence. The Korith, a reptilian species enslaved 5,000 years ago, sent secret messages asking how they could help. The Mindari, whose homeworld had been destroyed by the council long ago, offered their hidden knowledge. Ambassador Thex Volan saw the reports and felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. This was not just a war anymore. This was becoming A revolution. He spoke to the Council's leadership in an emergency session. We are losing control of the subject species, he warned. The humans have become a symbol. Every attack they make inspires more rebellion. Every victory proves that the Council can be beaten. Then destroy them completely. A Council leader replied. Gather the Grand Fleet. Every ship we have. End this. Thexvolan shook his head. The Grand Fleet would take months to assemble. And while we gather our forces, the humans will continue to attack. The subject species will continue to rebel. We may win the battle and lose our empire. The Council argued among themselves. Some wanted total war. Some wanted negotiation. Some wanted to pretend the problem did not exist. Meanwhile, 3 more subject species contacted humanity. They offered ships, resources, and soldiers. They asked only one thing in return: a place in the new galaxy that humanity was building. Captain Volkov looked at the growing alliance and allowed himself a small moment of hope. They were still outnumbered. They were still outgunned. But they were no longer alone. He sent a message to Secretary General Okonkwo on Earth. We have friends now. We have a chance. Prepare for the final battle. We are going to end this war. Okonkwo read the message and walked outside. He looked up at the sky, at the stars that had seemed so peaceful just months ago. Now they were a battlefield. Now they held the future of humanity. We will be ready, he said quietly. Whatever it takes, we will be ready. The wolves had hunted well. Now it was time for the final kill. The Galactic Council met in emergency session on Axiom Prime, their capital world. The Great Chamber had witnessed 80,000 years of decisions, but it had never seen chaos like this. Ancient leaders screamed at each other. Alliances that had lasted millennia crumbled in hours. Ambassador Thexvolan stood in the center and tried to restore order. We must decide, he called out. Every day we argue, the humans grow stronger. Every day we wait, more subject species join their cause. Then we destroy them all. A hardliner shouted. Gather every ship, burn their worlds, make an example that will last 10,000 years. With what ships? Another voice answered. Half our fleet is destroyed or guarding rebellious territories. If we gather everything for an attack, our empire will collapse behind us. A third leader spoke, and her words shocked everyone. Perhaps we should negotiate. Offer the humans freedom. Let them go. End this before we lose everything. The chamber erupted. Negotiate? The Council had never negotiated. The Council gave orders. The Council demanded tribute. The Council did not beg primitives for peace. But the truth was clear to anyone willing to see it. The humans had done what no species had done in 80,000 years. They had not just survived. They had won battles. They had inspired rebellion. They had brought the mighty Council to its knees. Thexvolan looked at the arguing leaders and felt something strange. He had delivered the ultimatum to humanity months ago. He had expected them to submit, like all the others. Instead, they had taught him something he had forgotten. Some species would rather die than kneel. He almost respected them for it. Captain Dmitry Volkov gathered the Liberation Fleet at the edge of Council space. 400 human warships had survived the long campaign. Beside them flew 150 ships from the Velith, the Korath, and the Mindari. Other species had sent smaller contributions: fuel, supplies, intelligence, prayers. It was not the largest fleet in the galaxy, but it was the most determined. Volkov addressed his captains one last time. This is it. We go to Axiom Prime. We go to the heart of the enemy. They will have defenses. They will have ships. They will have every weapon their ancient civilization can create, and we are going to break them anyway. He paused, looking at the faces on his screens. Human faces, Velith faces, Korath faces, all of them united against a common enemy. We are not fighting for conquest. We are not fighting for revenge. We are fighting so that every species in this galaxy can be free. We are fighting so that no one ever has to kneel again. Today we end 80,000 years of tyranny. Today, we become legends. The fleet jumped to FTL. The final battle had begun. Axiom Prime was the most beautiful world in the galaxy. Its cities floated on clouds of light. Its towers reached toward the heavens. Its people had known nothing but peace and prosperity for longer than humanity had existed. Now human warships appeared in its sky. The Council's defense fleet was waiting. 600 ships protecting the capital. They were the best ships, the strongest crews, the most advanced weapons the Council possessed. They formed a wall between the Liberation Fleet and their world. For a long moment, neither side moved. Then Captain Volkov broadcast a message that every being on Axiom Prime could hear. People of the Council, I am Captain Dmitry Volkov of the United Terran Republic. We did not want this war. Your leaders came to our world and demanded that we become slaves. We refused. Your leaders sent fleets to destroy us. We survived. Your leaders tried to crush us with the weight of 80,000 years of empire. We pushed back. He took a deep breath. We are not here for revenge. We are not here to destroy your world. We are here to end the tyranny that has enslaved 100 species. Surrender, and no one else needs to die. Fight, and we will do whatever is necessary. The Council Defense Fleet responded with weapons fire. They chose war. The Battle of Axiom Prime was the largest engagement in galactic history. Thousands of ships fought across 1,000,000 kilometers of space. Weapons that could crack planets exchanged fire. Ships rammed each other in desperate struggles. The night sky of Axiom Prime burned with the light of dying vessels. Captain Volkov commanded from his flagship, the Tanaka, named in honor of the admiral who had died to save humanity. His ship took hit after hit, but he refused to leave the battle. He directed his forces with calm precision, finding weaknesses, exploiting gaps, turning the chaos into victory. The subject species fought alongside humans. Velith pilots flew suicide missions into Council dreadnoughts. Korath warriors boarded enemy ships and fought hand-to-hand. Mindari engineers kept damaged vessels running through sheer willpower. For 12 hours, the battle raged. Both sides suffered terrible losses. But slowly, inevitably, the Council fleet began to break. Their ships were powerful but inflexible. Their crews were skilled but had never faced true desperation. They expected enemies to follow rules, to fight fairly, to eventually surrender when the odds were hopeless. The Liberation Fleet had no such limitations. They fought like beings with nothing to lose, because many of them had already lost everything. They used tactics the Council had never seen. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation. They simply refused to give up. The Council flagship exploded at hour 10. The Council defensive line collapsed at hour 11. By hour 12, surviving Council ships were surrendering rather than dying for a cause they no longer believed in. Captain Volkov looked at his screens. His ship was heavily damaged. Half his crew was dead or wounded, but below him, Axiom Prime waited. All ships, he broadcast, his voice tired but triumphant. The battle is won. The Council has fallen. Hold your fire unless fired upon. The guns fell silent. For the first time in 80,000 years, enemy ships orbited the Council's capital world, and those enemies demanded nothing but freedom. Secretary General Marcus Okonkwo traveled to Axiom Prime for the negotiations. He walked into the great chamber where the Council had ruled for millennia and faced the beings who had tried to enslave his species. You have won, Thexvolan said quietly. What do you want? Okonkwo could have asked for anything. Tribute, territory, revenge. He could have demanded that the Council species become slaves, as they had enslaved so many others. Instead, he spoke words that shocked everyone in the chamber. We want a galaxy where no species rules over another. We want a galactic assembly where all species are equal. We want freedom, not empire. We did not fight this war to become what you were. We fought this war to make sure no one ever has to fight such a war again. The Council leaders stared at him. They did not understand. They had ruled through fear and power for 80,000 years. They did not know how to imagine a galaxy based on cooperation and equality, but they had no choice. The Liberation Fleet controlled their skies. Their empire was crumbling. Their subject species were demanding freedom. They signed the Treaty of Axiom. The Galactic Council was dissolved. In its place rose the Galactic Assembly, with representatives from every species, large and small, ancient and young. No one would pay tribute. No one would kneel. Every species would control its own destiny. The war was over. Freedom had won. Years later, Ambassador Thexvolan visited Earth. He walked through the rebuilt cities and saw children playing in parks. He saw memorials to the fallen, statues of Admiral Tanaka and Captain Volkov and the countless others who had given their lives. He found Secretary General Okonkwo in a garden, watching the sunset. I have studied your species since the war ended, Thexvolan said. I have read your history. I have learned about your struggles. I still do not understand one thing. What is that? Okonkwo asked. Why did you refuse to yield? Every calculation predicted your destruction. Every analysis showed that resistance was hopeless. You could have submitted, lived as servants, survived. Why did you choose to fight and die instead? Okonkwo smiled and pointed at the children playing nearby. He pointed at the rebuilt cities. He pointed at the stars, appearing in the evening sky. Because some things are more important than survival, he said. We would rather die free than live as slaves. Our ancestors learned that lesson long ago. They passed it down through generations, through wars and plagues and disasters. They taught us that freedom is worth any price. He looked at Thexvolen with calm, peaceful eyes. You ruled the galaxy for 80,000 years through fear. You believed that all species would eventually kneel to survive. But you were wrong. Some species will never kneel. Some species will fight against impossible odds, sacrifice everything they have, and burn the stars themselves rather than surrender their freedom. He stood up and looked at the sky, where human ships now sailed among the stars as equals, not servants. That is humanity. That is who we are. And that is why we will never yield. Thexvolen listened and finally understood. He had spent his life believing that power was everything. The humans had taught him that courage was stronger than power, that hope was stronger than fear, that a small species willing to die for freedom could change the entire galaxy. He bowed to Okonkwo, the first time he had ever bowed to anyone. Perhaps, he said quietly, the galaxy is better for your defiance. Okonkwo smiled. Perhaps it is. And across the stars, in the new galactic assembly, species that had been slaves for thousands of years spoke and voted and dreamed of futures their ancestors could never have imagined. They remembered the small, young species that had stood against the ancient masters and refused to yield. They remembered humanity, and they made sure the galaxy would never forget.